Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine, here. Today, we're going to be talking about the differences between mental health and mental illness. Given that it is May and it is Mental Health Awareness Month, I need to make sure that we are all on the same page with this so that when we talk about mental health and we go out there in the community with our friends and our family and our clients, that we know what we're talking about, because this is a very, very key difference in order to know and be able to communicate with. Before I get into that, I want to first apologize. I have been MIA for a long time. I've been in a period of rest and rejuvenation, and I'm not saying I'm 100% back, but your girl is trying. And I do miss podcasting because I love the impact that it makes. I love being able to teach information, and I love hearing from you. I love hearing how you're able to share the episodes, how you heard it in your class, or you shared it with a colleague, or you listened to these episodes before you went in for an interview and you got the job. They inspired you to leave a toxic situation. I've heard so many success stories, and I love doing the podcast. That is the entire reason why I started doing this. It is a labor of love. I'm grateful to be back to be recording a couple of episodes. I want to make sure that you really have the groundwork and the foundation for mental health versus mental illness. I'm going to share some recent statistics about mental health, the most common diagnoses, how to recognize when it's time to seek help, when your clients need to seek help, and where to go for that help. So let's hop into it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Catherine Moore. I am a licensed clinical social worker, therapist, author, and keynote speaker, and obviously podcaster. I'm based out of Southern California, and I have been social working since 2009. I've been doing therapy full time since 2019. My specialty is in helping women who struggle with anxiety. I love just helping that population. They are my people, they're my jam. But I have worked with many other populations as well. So if you ever have any questions about what it's like to be a social worker, to be a therapist, please just send me a message. I'm on Instagram a lot at Social Workers Rise. You can find me on LinkedIn, send me an invitation to follow or to connect. And also to make sure that you're signed up for the email resource list, because occasionally I will send out updates about what's going on in the field, events that are coming up, trainings, freebies, courses, things that I think are important for you as a new social worker to know. So let's hop into this. What is mental health? So, according to the World Health Organization, this is a state of mental well being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their full potential, learn, work well, and overall contribute to their community. The way that I describe mental health to my clients is it's really the quality of your emotions on a regular basis. It's how you're able to function, especially when life throws some curveballs at you, right? So, mental health is about wellness overall. It's not just the absence of illness, okay? A lot of different systems contribute to our mental health. And I always go over these different systems with my clients because it's really important that we're able to understand how our mental health is being impacted and how it's not one thing. There's not going to be one thing that's going to make you feel better, but it's really coming from the systems perspective, meaning you as the individual are in the middle of all your systems around you. And these systems are going to be your social connections, your physical health, your finances, your spirituality, your purpose, your work, your school life, all of these different people and entities around you. And that's just on the micro level, but also too on the macro level, there's the political environment, environmental circumstances, There's other issues such as poverty or violence in the community, inequality. So all of these different systems impact each other and your mental health and how you're feeling on a daily basis, right? If we compare mental health to physical health, it is very similar in that we can be feeling great one day, but the next day, maybe we're not. It can be different for each person. Past hurts and injuries do have an impact on how our health is presenting at any given moment. And sometimes what is sometimes a small concern can turn into a bigger concern or a bigger illness where we might need professional help. And this leads me into the next area of mental illness. Mental illness is a diagnosable mental disorder that significantly impacts your thinking, emotional regulation, and your functioning on a regular basis. In order for something to be considered a mental illness, it has to be significantly impacting you and your life or your relationships in some sort of way, right? So everyone has mental health, just like you have physical health, but not everyone has a mental illness. That is the big difference. So, just to kind of go over some stats on mental illness in the United States, there wasn't a whole lot that I was happy with that was really current and recent, but I did find some stats from 2024 and they were pretty outstanding and not in a good way. I found that nearly 60 million adults, or about 23% of adults, have experienced mental illness in the past year. About 13 million, or about 5%, reported serious thoughts of suicide. So let me break this down. If you are in a room of 100 adults of the general population, that means 23 of them have or are currently experiencing mental illness within the past year. And 5 of those people out of the 100 have had serious thoughts about suicide. That's pretty startling to me. That seems like a really high number. But at the same time, I'm kind of not surprised. Talking about young people. So people in the ages of 12 to 17, so our teenagers, 1 in 5 of people who are aged 12 to 17 have experienced at least one major depressive episode in the past year. 1 in 5. That's wild. So if you're in a room, in a classroom of 25 students, 5 of those students have experienced at least one major depressive episode in the past year. However, more than half of those students did not receive any mental health treatment for that depression. And furthermore, more than 3.4 million youth, so that's a little over 13% of our youth, has had serious thoughts of suicide. So that's significantly higher than the 5% of adults, meaning if there's a room full of 100 teenagers, 13 of them have had serious thoughts of suicide in the past year. This is really important that we give voice to these people. These are real challenges going on that adults and especially teenagers are struggling with right now, and they need us to show up as our best self if we're going to help them. The most common mental health disorders in the United States, the top 5 are going to be anxiety disorders, major depression, narcissistic personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and followed lastly by bipolar disorder. So I will mention anxiety disorders is by far the number one most common, with 19% of the disorders, being anxiety, followed by depression at 8%, narcissistic personality up to 5% of the population, PTSD 3.6, and bipolar is 2.8%. Right? It's important that we know who is at risk for developing mental health illnesses and disorders. As a human and as a therapist, I would say literally everybody, because we all go through hard times. We all have moments of grief. We all have times in life where life is just freaking hard. It beats us down. We have changes. We're trying to figure out the balance of everything. I will just say everybody, but especially the following populations are at the highest risk for developing mental illness, including BIPOC communities, right? People of color, Latinos, Blacks, Native Americans, the LGBTQIA plus population, especially the youth, is at really high chances for mental health illnesses. Youth in foster care or the juvenile justice system, first responders and helping professionals, yes, including social workers, survivors of trauma, poverty, or chronic illness. And it's important to note that 50% of all mental illness develops before the age of 14. So we are not forgetting the children. It's important to bring light to the fact that, yes, if you are developing a mental illness under the age of 14, there is help available. Okay. I want you as a social worker to know, okay, when is it going to be just regular mental health struggles, or maybe they're having a bad day today? And then when is it more? When do we need to really start intervening? When do we really need to start bringing in all the resources and tapping into all the strengths? And when do we need therapy and additional services, right? I'm going to review the symptoms of when it might be time to get evaluated for a mental illness. And these symptoms are according to NAMI. That's really important that we know we're able to look out for these symptoms. Here they are. Excessive worry or fear. Feeling excessively sad or low. Confused thinkings or problem concentrating, problems learning, problems with focus. If you're seeing extreme mood changes, including really high highs or really low lows. Prolonged or really intense feelings of irritability or anger. Also avoiding friends, avoiding social activities, or what they call socially isolating, where you're like, no, I know I used to like going out with you guys, but I don't feel like it. I'm too tired. I just can't today. Difficulties understanding or relating to other people. Changes in sleeping habits or feeling tired or low energy most of the time. Changes in eating habits, such as eating more or eating less, losing weight or gaining weight. Changes in your sex drive. Difficulty perceiving reality. So what this means is if somebody is experiencing delusions or hallucinations, or if they're sensing things that don't actually exist. If there's an inability to perceive changes in their feelings, their behaviors, or their personality. Maybe they have a lack of insight into the problems. Another warning sign is the overuse of substances like alcohol or drugs, especially if it's used for kind of numbing out or forgetting their problems or to help you feel better. Multiple physical health complaints without an obvious cause. This can include headaches, stomach aches, or just vague ongoing aches and pains. And this is because when our brains are stressed, It releases chemicals into our bodies, into our muscles, and the buildup of these chemicals is what makes us sore and what gives us pains, and it upsets our stomachs. It causes pressure in the chest. So another symptom to look out for is the physical changes. Thinking about suicide or talking about not being here anymore. Sometimes this will show up as, yeah, I've thought about what it would be like if I weren't here. Or I thought about what it would be like if I just got into a car accident and I went away to the hospital, right? A lot of times the suicide, and we'll talk more about suicide in upcoming episodes, but a lot of times it's about how do I end the pain that I'm in versus ending my life, right? So sometimes people bring up suicide as a way to say, like, I don't know what else to do besides end my life. I just want this pain to stop. If there's an inability to carry out activities or handle daily problems and stress, for example, I work with a lot of women who are new moms and they're feeling so overwhelmed that even taking a shower is a struggle because they just feel so overwhelmed with things to do. They can't catch a break. They feel stressed. And it's a struggle to do the things like taking a shower, going to the grocery store, cooking food, cleaning the house, these types of things. In students, it'll show up as not doing homework, as they're not able to do the reading. There's no motivation to show up. It just feels overwhelming. Even picking out something to wear for school might feel overwhelming. There's also an intense fear of what others might think or the social pressures. In children, this could look a little bit different. So mental health conditions do develop in children as well, but because they don't have the language that we do when we're older, or they might not have the insight into the emotions that they're feeling, a lot of the symptoms that we see in children are going to be behavioral, including changes in their school performance. They're worrying a lot more, or they become anxious, or they are having hyperactive behavior, meaning they're just really fidgety, they're hyper, they're just going. They might have frequent nightmares, frequent disobedience, or they might be more aggressive. They might have more temper tantrums, more crying, more emotional. They may be regressing in their behaviors, such as wetting the bed or going back to baby talk. So all of these different symptoms, it's good to be aware of and to look out for. Just because you have one or some of these symptoms, it doesn't mean that you have a mental health diagnosis. It just means that, hey, there might be something going on here. Maybe you're extra stressed and we just need time to relax, to recharge, to be with loved ones, to refill your cup. Okay. And it's important that we're able to acknowledge these signs, because if left untreated, mental health conditions will start to impact our physical health as well. I've talked to many, many older adults, especially in the healthcare system, where they appeared very successful on the outside. They're lawyers, they're doctors, but here they are in their 50s with heart problems, having a stroke, having really high anxiety, having heart palpitations, because they never paused long enough to give themselves the care that they need. Okay. If there is some sort of warning sign that you see in yourself, in your clients, in your colleague, there are so many treatment options that are available. One, I would always start with the lifestyle changes. So what can you do to lower your stress? What can you do to increase your rest? How can you make sure that you're improving your nutrition, getting more movement, more exercise into your life, being out in nature, and being around people who help feed into you, who make you feel better, who can really be the person to talk to when you need extra support. Just by making these types of changes, this can go a really long way. Next up, we would be therapy. There's a lot of therapy modalities that have been effective in reducing a lot of these symptoms and behaviors, and these can be at any age. Another option, and again, not for everybody, but medications. Sometimes people need medication in order to get through a period of time in their life that's extra difficult. Other times people need medications ongoing for their life. It just depends on you, your client, what it is that's going on. Peer support and groups. If you have other people in your life who you're able to talk to, you feel safe being vulnerable with, you feel like it's an emotional, safe place to talk and to share how you're feeling, that is amazing. Amazing. If not, there are a lot of support groups out there. It can go a long way to have other people who say, girl, I get it. I've been there. That is so stressful. This is what I tried and what worked for me. And it can help you feel a lot less alone, less isolated, and help you feel more creative and more motivated to make these changes, especially when you see people who have been there, done that, and now they're on the other side of it. The other thing, I know this particular area has helped me a lot, is spiritual practices and mindfulness. So just being able to appreciate your situation, find meaning in it. And also, as far as the mindfulness, being able to appreciate the current moment, being fully present into what's going on right now. Because if we're worried about the future, we're thinking about anxiety. If we're ruminating on the past, a lot of times that's where depression comes from. But if we can find joy in the current moment, appreciation, ability to just ground ourselves into what's happening right here and now, that can bring us out of trauma, disassociation. It has so many amazing benefits. And lastly, there's a lot of crisis resources that are available. So if you or a client do feel like you need extra support, or like you're in crisis, like you're thinking about ending your life today or just at all, there's the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. There's local support. You can reach out to your local chapter of NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they have helplines that are available as well. So that is all for today. We talked about a lot of different things. We differentiated between mental health versus mental illness. I covered the top 5 mental illnesses that we're seeing in the United States today, and some warning signs into what might you be looking for in case somebody needs extra help. When a client comes to you and they have any of those symptoms, make sure to either ask them about it, to get clinical supervision, to consult with a colleague. Make sure that you are looking into those red flags because you don't want to miss anything. You want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, that you are working ethically for the care of your client. Normalize checking in with yourself because social work is hard. And to be honest, there's a lot of us who have a history of those categories that make us high risk. There's a lot of BIPOC social workers. There's a lot of us social workers who have high rates of trauma in our past. Did you know that social workers are way more likely than the general population to have experienced a high number of childhood traumas? Yes, it is true. It makes you at higher risk. It's important that we're able to self-reflect and be honest with ourselves about, hey, something's not right. I need to talk to somebody about this, need to brainstorm. What can I do to change how I'm feeling? What can I do to alter my systems to make this more sustainable? Because if you're feeling burnt out in grad school or as a bachelor's in your social work program, let me tell you, it's not going to get better when you get a full-time job because it's important to really be able to tap in with yourself, know what you need, and then have the courage and the boundaries to go and do that, to feed into yourself. Because if you are not your best self and you're showing up to work irritable, you're missing things, you're not able to focus, you're not really helping anybody. You're just essentially just being there so that you can say that you're there. It would be more beneficial to everybody around you if you were to just pause, take some time for yourself, and feed back into yourself. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just show my gratitude to you, especially if you're still here, still listening. It means that you really take this topic seriously. If this helped you at all, make sure that you are subscribed to the Social Workers Rise podcast. Share this out with somebody. Open up your app, as long as it's safe to do so and you're not driving, and text this to somebody and say, hey, check this out. Share this with your colleagues, with your classmates, whoever you think might benefit from it. If you are new around here, I do want to let you know that I have my Friday resources email list. The link is there in the show notes. If you want to stay connected with the podcast and see what we're up to, see what's new around here, make sure to subscribe. Also, you're welcome to say hi to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Make sure that you're subscribed. And if you love the podcast and you've been listening for at least a couple episodes, I would be eternally grateful if you could leave a 5-star review and just a little comment about why you choose to listen to the Social Workers Rise podcast. So with that, I will see you next time.